Welcome to LOA Today. Walt Thiessen and Anne-Marie Kanata McEwen here. This is Sunday, August the 26th, 2018, 8 p.m. Eastern Time, your weekend dose of happy, and we hope you've had a wonderful weekend. I know Louise and I have. We just spent the day, Anne-Marie, up in Vermont at Mount Snow, Vermont, with friends of ours who live up there.
Ooh.
Oh, just had a great time. I mean, it was just gorgeous weather, absolutely gorgeous. Had a great lunch at the country club. Went downtown, well, not downtown. There is no downtown. West Dover, population 6. You know, it's not a real big town.
Right.
But maybe a few more than 6. But they had there was a little park there where they had a Sunday concert. One of the local bands from Massachusetts that, in their words, climbed over the wall to Vermont and put on a 2-hour concert. So we had music. It was great. Our friends, saw some of their friends there, and Louise, of course, used to. Back in her youth, was a resident up there at Mount Snow for a 3 or 4 year period.
Oh, wow.
She was a ski bum. So it was all catching up and talking and saying, oh, you remember back when, and so on and so forth, back when TC's was Eats and all this other stuff. And TC's, by the way, is important to skiers because anyone who knows Katie Clark, the famous snowboarder, her parents own TC's. They're in Mount Snow.
Oh.
That's where Katie Clark comes from. She comes from Mount Snow, Vermont.
Wow.
And in fact, Louise has the honor of having known Katie when she was an infant because she took care of her. She babysitted for Katie Clark when she was an infant.
Oh, my goodness. Wow. Wow. Isn't it? It's such a small world. Wow.
It really is.
That's so cool.
Yeah, no doubt about it.
Nice.
So we had a great time.
I'm sure that's why she grew up to be such a great skier.
That's got to be it.
She had Louise as a babysitter.
It has nothing to do with her skill level or anything like that. But it was great. I mean, and of course, during the summer, you don't have all the skiers up there, so it's just, it's just summer, and it was gorgeous. It was just perfect weather, absolutely perfect. So
it was a beautiful day. Even down here, it was a little bit warm. I have to admit, a little bit warm, but it was beautiful. The breeze was just perfect.
Yeah. Yeah, that breeze definitely works, particularly up in Vermont, because, of course, the air is so fresh up there. And you had that cool breeze in your face, and you're like, oh, God, I don't want to do anything else. I was ready to fall asleep in the middle of the concert. Right. I mean, it was fabulous.
Yep.
So that's how my weekend went. How did your weekend go? I mean, wow. It was a good weekend, no matter where you were.
Yeah. No, I had a nice weekend. Today, we went to the Wadsworth Mansion open air market. I went with my granddaughter and my parents and had a very nice afternoon shopping and eating and looking at lots of jewelry. And, sometimes I can't buy all this stuff, but I love looking at what other people have created and especially jewelry. And I just love looking at it and some of the woodworkings that they made. Oh, it's just so interesting to me to see all these other handcrafted items. It's really fun.
What's fascinating to me is every once in a while, I mean, obviously I don't do this throughout the day because I wouldn't get anything done if I did, but periodically I'll think to myself, it's amazing. We manifest all this stuff in our lives and we don't think about it. It's not like, oh, geez, I was trying to manifest a beautiful day in Vermont at Mount Snow. No, that's not what I was trying to do. But nevertheless, we had a great time at Mount Snow, Vermont, and we expected it because we were visiting good friends. People we were, Louise has been close to Leona in particular for practically since when she was back there. Actually, that's where they met. They met at Mount Snow when Louise was ski bumming. So, they have a long-term relationship. So that alone, you're going to have a good time just because you're catching up with friends.
Right.
But nevertheless, there is more to it. And it's hard to remember that sometimes, that all this stuff, even though we aren't necessarily deliberately creating it, we're manifesting all of it.
Yes, it is. And it's hard to remember that. And sometimes it's hard to figure out, like, why did I manifest this? Like my husband and I were at breakfast the other day and the orders got messed up. And he looked at me and he said, now, how did I manifest this? I wasn't thinking I was going to get a messed up order.
Right.
I wasn't thinking about it at all. So how come it came up messed up? And I just looked at him and I said, I don't know.
What? You don't know everything?
We just it's hard to know, and sometimes I say, so this is what I do just to give myself peace of mind. I say, well, okay, maybe it happened to teach me a lesson or to give me an opportunity to practice something, or maybe it happened because it was in my particular life path that is supposed to help me down the road with something, like maybe this major incident that happened is supposed to give me the opportunity to learn something. So, that's just, for me, that's one way I can look at it. And so I try not to get too upset with whatever it is that happened. And obviously, if it's a good thing that happened, then, oh yeah, I worked on that.
Yeah, of course, right. You take total credit for anything good that happens. Absolutely.
Why not, right?
But I think you're right. The fact is that when we have stuff happen, it really comes down to how are we going to react to it. I mean, because like you said, you could get really upset about it. But, you talk about a lesson. I'm not sure if it's really a lesson, but one of my goals whenever I find myself dealing with something that is adverse and negative in my perception is to see how quickly can I find myself on the positive side. Even though I really don't like that thing that happened. I really, really don't like that thing that happened. But how quickly can I take my mind off the fact that I don't like that and in some way redirect myself so that I'm feeling better again? Because I know how important it is to stay in that positive zone, to stay in the vortex, as they say, or in alignment.
Right. And that's a great objective to have. And I try to get out of it as fast as possible. But sometimes you're in the middle of something. Like today, I was in the middle of something with my daughter, and I was just furious. I just wanted to scream and yell, and I needed to vent. And I, when it was like I was in the middle of it, and I had one part of it had gotten me really mad, but then I knew I had to go see her, and in between me having the one part and then going to see her, I was still really mad, and I called up Mike. I'm like, Mike, you got to talk me down off the ledge because I'm furious right now. I was like, I was just and just talking about it helped me to get down to a little better place. And then I saw her and blew up again, and I was just like, and I could hear Abraham in the background in my head saying, you just have to keep yourself in a place of calmness yourself, and then you can handle things. But this was not one of those times. I just needed to tell her how, what I thought about the situation. And after I talked with her and I got into my car and I was on my way home, then I was fine. I just needed to explode for a while, and then I was okay. And then I texted her later and I apologized, but I don't like to get that angry. I don't like to get to that point where I'm so mad I just need to yell. It's that's rare for me, but
I think we've all been there.
I do try really, really hard. Yeah, of course, it's such an easy thing to do in life. I mean, life is so difficult, but it is really one of my goals to get back into what Abraham calls the vortex, or a positive focus as soon as possible. It's just it's so important that we do that. Life throws crap at us all the time, so we're always going to get angry about something or frustrated about something, but it's getting back into those positive vibes that is so crucial.
It's very true, and it's where it's good to have your go-to activities or practices or modalities or whatever you want to call them to go to when you need them most. Like, okay, I'm really, really angry right now. What's my first thing that I can do to get myself into a better feeling place? And you described it. You literally looked for something that felt better. Even if it was, still angry, at least it felt better than what you were feeling, so you're aiming for something a little bit better. You were looking for that. You were looking for that modality. I mean, I had a great...
I always forget about the deep breathing, I always forget about that, but that's something that's really, really helpful.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. Well, it's the basis of meditation, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And in fact, last Monday, after my podcast with Patty Framo, Patty actually did a little coaching with me because of something I was dealing with at the time. She made a really, really good suggestion. One that, when she said it, it sounds so obvious. Like, why didn't I think to do this before? But she suggested to me, make a written list of all of my good feeling processes, and then post it somewhere so that when I'm struggling or needing to get into the better feeling place, or whatever, I don't have to try to think of one. I can just go look at the list and pick one. I thought, what a brilliant idea. Yeah. Why didn't I think of that one? That was great. And I've got one posted now. I got it posted right next to the mirror that I use for my mirror exercises. So I always know where it is, where to go, what to look at. And what really amazed me.
That's great. So that's great. Are you still doing your mirror exercises?
Not as frequently as I would like to. And that's part of the reason that I've been talking about with Patty and with Linda Armstrong. Linda really helped me out with an energy clearing session this past Friday.
Yeah, I heard that show. That was great.
Did you? Yeah. Oh, it was quite an experience. I've never had an experience like that one before. I've had experiences where I had psychic readings and mediums and so forth, and of course I've had plenty of shows that I've done with coaches, but never one that was like partway between a little bit of each world, all in the same thing. And it was fascinating. And it was really good. Got great things out of that one and out of the one that I did with Patty earlier in the week. But this list that I put together, I amazed myself. I actually put 18 practices on that list. I didn't know I had that many.
18?
18.
18? Oh my goodness! Wow.
Now, to be fair, she gave me one of them.
I couldn't even think of that many.
Well, that's why you write them down.
Oh my goodness! Wow. So you're going to tell us what they are?
Sure. Okay, I can read through them. Mirror exercises, taking a walk, and number 3 is very similar: taking a walk with headphones, playing positive music. And then 4 is also similar. Just listen to positive music, like, go in another room and sit down and listen to positive music. Number 5, relive 3 good things that have happened during the day. Number 6, play the Uplift video game that I like to play at happify.com. Number 7, it's a fun game too. It's great. It's a little video game. I love it. I've been talking about it the last few days. Number 7, and this is one that Patty gave me. I thought it was a really good one. It's like, here's this huge resource. We don't use it. Check the Ask and It Is Given book for appropriate processes, because they got 22 processes in the back of the book, or some number like that. Like, oh my God, I always forget about those.
Right.
So, okay, it's on the list. Number 8, meditation or walking meditation. I tend to do a walking meditation, if you know what that is. I didn't even know.
Yeah, because that's good. A walking meditation is good.
I never knew that what I did was actually a meditation. I've been doing that for years. I just never called it a meditation. And then somebody I think it was one of my co-hosts, pointed out to me, well, that's a walking meditation. I said, oh, cool. I guess I do meditate after all. Because for me, it's just a way of shedding excess energy when I need to shed some excess energy. But I guess that's what a meditation really is. Number 9, read Abraham Hicks or watch an Abraham video. Number 10, do a podcast. Number 11, call a co-host. Like, I have all these co-hosts who are coaches and friends who know law of attraction. Like, oh, geez, I never do that one, but I really thought that should be on the list. Number 12, this one I've been doing. Could. Number 12, I've been doing this for years. Talk with Louise. That's like a great way for me to get back in a good place. Number 13, I like playing Robin Williams on the show Inside the Actors Studio when he appeared there in the early 2000s. His first 10 minutes of that video were one of his best 10-minute segments ever. He was riffing like crazy and having a great time. You're gonna love number 14, because I almost couldn't believe I put it on the list. But number 14 is laughter yoga.
Yeah, I know it has something like laughter. That's great. So so Walt, tell me. I want the truth here. If you're in one of those moods where you're outside the vortex and you're really struggling, can you laugh?
Sometimes I can. It depends how far out I am. I mean, you have to kind of use it like you would with the Ask and It Is Given processes. You know, how each one is graded in terms of, okay, here's what your emotional state is. So if your emotional state is in this range, this is an appropriate process to use. Same kind of thing.
Yeah.
You know, so if I can reach for a laugh, and sometimes I can. Sometimes I can see the absurdity of the situation and I can laugh at that.
Yeah. Good. That's great.
Number 15 is physical pivoting, similar to emotional or mental pivoting, but physically pivoting, like physically just turning away from it and going to do something else.
Oh.
It's like,
that's a great idea.
Why not?
Yeah.
And then as a related one to that, mental pivoting, which is reaching for the next better feeling thought. Okay, well, I don't like that one, so I'm going to pivot over here to this one that I like. And also related to that one is going general. A lot of the time when I'm feeling frustrated about something, I'm frustrated about a specific thing, so just go for more general feelings. Go for more general expressions and so forth. It's harder to get negative about general stuff. So that's why I like that one. And then finally, playing with and petting my cats.
Oh, yeah. Heck, that should be number one.
Well, it depends on whether or not they're around. If they're in the room, they'll actually come over and just, they know when I need it. So Harmony in particular will come up and rub against my leg or something like that and basically say, why aren't you paying attention to me? It'll relieve your stress. You'll feel a whole lot better. And boy, I'll like it too. So there's my list of 18 items on my feel-good processes list.
Nice. Well, that sounds great. Well, I'm going to have to work on that. I'll have to work on that because I don't have a list like that. I just, I don't know what I do. I go to Abraham videos a lot. I mean, I listen to them anyway throughout the day. If I'm washing dishes or doing my exercising or, pretty much throughout the entire day, I'm listening to an Abraham video or some other video on YouTube that I'm learning from. So that's one of my go-tos is to listen to Abraham.
And I'm actually realizing there's probably more I could add to that. That's the nice thing. Once you start the list, you start to notice what's missing, so you can start filling it out. Like I didn't really mention anything about nature in there. I guess I mentally included it in taking a walk, but just appreciating nature, regardless of whether you're taking a walk, is in and of itself a way to feel better. So I should really put that on as a separate item,
Yeah, absolutely. That was the thing that got me out of a bind one day. I was just looking up at the sky and really appreciating the beautiful sun shining through the clouds and the colors of the clouds. And, I can really get into a deep appreciation state by looking at the clouds and the sun and all that.
So I know you don't have your own list, but can you name a few things that are your favorite go-to items when you do need something to go to?
Well, that's one of them. Or looking at nature. Or if I'm out like today, I was out in the woods, so I was looking at the different shades of green and appreciating the smell and appreciating the fresh air. So appreciating nature is definitely one of the ones that I go to. Laughter is another one. I'm quick to laugh when I really don't feel like laughing. Today I was just so angry I wound up calling Mike. So like you called Louise, I call up Mike and talk through it a little bit, and that was really helpful. Deep breathing is something that I know is really good, but I forget to do it a lot of times. So I really need to remember that one more because I appreciate it. And I had a really a very tangible story about the law of attraction, which involved deep breathing. And it was quite dramatic, I would say. I think I told you this story once before about when I was going to the dentist.
Well, tell it again.
Remember that?
Because, I may have heard it, but our listeners have not heard it, so tell them.
Okay. I had been listening to the law of attraction, but hadn't really embraced it and hadn't really tried it out. And it was just this, like the first time that I really put it to the test. And so I remember it really well because it was, like I said, dramatic. Mm-hmm. So what happened was, it was wintertime. Fortunately, no snow on the ground. And I had an early dentist appointment, a 9:30 dentist appointment to have my teeth cleaned. And being a retired dental hygienist, I take my dental appointments very seriously. I do not like to be late. So I got up extra early and I went on my emails and I was very casual and relaxed and just sort of laid back and had a cup of tea and did some exercises and ate my breakfast and took a shower. And, just knowing that I had plenty of time, I was just really relaxed. And I came out of the shower and I looked at the clock and it said 9:15. And I was like, no! And I freaked out, totally freaked out. I was like, no, I'm going to catch pneumonia now because I don't have time to dry my hair. And, all these things. I just started yelling at myself and berating myself. And it was just one bad word after the next. And it was just terrible. So I threw on clothes. I hop in my car. I'm driving down Route 9. And this place is right off Route 9, but it's, it's quite a ways down Route 9. So I'm driving. And then all of a sudden I feel like this invisible knock on my head and inside, and I hear this voice go, the invisible voice that talks to me all the time.
Right.
And I know that it knows everything, right? But it says to me, where are you going? And I got even more mad because I knew that they knew where I was going, but they wanted to tell it. So, okay, I'm going to the dentist, and then what else are you doing? I'm driving my car going, and it's like before I could even finish that whole statement, I realized that I was doing two potentially very dangerous things by driving a car and by going to the dentist. At the same time, I was angry.
Mm-hmm.
So I knew, because I'd been studying the law of attraction, that, oh dear, that could cause something really bad to happen. If I'm really angry and doing something potentially dangerous, something bad could happen because I was so angry. And I immediately thought, I've got to stop feeling so angry. And then I thought, well, I'm so grateful. Thank you for, reminding me of this. Thank you for bringing my attention to this. Thank you. And I knew that the best way for me to get there is through appreciation.
Yeah, that's a good start.
Through
right
gratitude.
There. That should be on the list. I'm
going
to add that to my list, actually. Appreciation. That's a good one. Just thinking of something to be appreciative of.
And as a matter of fact, going back to your discussion a few days ago about appreciation and the difference between appreciation and gratitude and how appreciation is bliss-like, I would definitely say, even I'm misusing the word appreciation here, I would say gratitude, because coming from such a negative place, all I was gratitude. I was feeling gratitude for, my higher self identifying my negative state of mind.
Right.
And I was feeling gratitude for the sun and the beautiful clouds. And I started taking some deep breaths. And then I heard the voice again say, how fast are you going? And I looked down at my speedometer, and I won't even tell you what I was doing, but it was a lot faster than I usually drive.
Yes.
And I was like, oh no! And I started jamming on the brakes. And just as I did that, I crested a hill, and there was a cop sitting on the right-hand side, and I saw him put down this clipboard, and the radar gun was in the window, and I was like, oh no, I'm going to get a ticket. But also in that same instant, I was really happy that I wasn't going to crash.
Yes.
I knew that the bad thing that I had attracted was just getting a ticket. And so I was happy about that, but I was not happy about getting a ticket, and I was not happy about being late to the dentist and getting stopped. So I just kept driving and trying to change my state of being, change my vibrational state. So I kept looking up to the sky. I started saying to myself, I'm grateful for my teeth. I'm grateful for my car. I'm grateful I can pay the dentist. I'm grateful I have eyes to see, really basic ones. Sometimes I just have to go basic. I'm grateful I have hands. I'm grateful I, am alive, these basic things. And I started saying those things, taking some deep breaths. And then I got to the point where, oops, I look in my rear view and I see the cop behind me with his lights on, and he's way behind me, and I see the car in between us two, and I felt really bad for that car. But I was still like in the process kind of slowing down, but I wasn't, like pulling over to the side because he was way behind me, and I still wanted to get to the dentist. So I'm still driving. And I finally got to the point where I was like, okay, if he catches up to me and I have to pull over, that's okay. And I accepted it, even though I did not want to do that. I did not want to get a ticket. I still got to a point of peacefulness about it. And I took 3 more deep breaths. And on my last breath, I could just literally feel, like you were talking to Linda the other day, you could feel the energy. I just feel this energy go right over me from my head right down to my toes. And when it got to my toes, I looked in my rearview mirror, and the cop turned off his lights and pulled off the highway and went onto the grass.
Wow.
And I was elated. I was so jubilant. I was like, yes, yes, yes. My hands went in the air, and I was just extremely ecstatic. I was like, oh my God, I can't believe it worked, but it worked. Look at that. It worked, And I walked into the dentist's office and the lady just walks up the hall and she says to me, "Oh, Anne Marie, you're here. Perfect timing." Oh my goodness. I laughed so hard that day.
I can see why.
She said perfect timing. I was like, wow, because within 15 minutes, I went from being peaceful and calm and happy to being angry and so furious with myself and like attracting getting the ticket and then calming myself down and being so calm that I could no longer resonate with getting a ticket. And the cop just pulled off the side of the road.
That's pretty wild, though. I mean, not only the result, but the fact that you were able to completely reverse momentum you'd already started and do it with almost split-second timing. That was truly remarkable.
Yeah. I don't think I've done anything like that since.
What are you waiting for? No, I'm kidding.
Yeah. So dramatic and so obvious to me. It was like, well, this stuff works. This law of attraction works. I don't doubt it anymore. I have total and full trust in the process. It's like when I'm talking to some people, sometimes I'll drop something and I'll say, just like I know that this is going to drop to the floor, I know the law of attraction is at work on this universe.
Yeah.
And you just have to play into it. You have to be deliberate about it. You have to create what you want to create, and you have to stay in alignment with it. And it's not easy, but it's simple. It's simple, but it's not easy.
One of the things I love about that story is how earlier you kind of described how it can be hard to remember to breathe. And the reason that's important is stress, which you also alluded to. Stress is the direct result of shallow breathing or not breathing properly. And yet, in the midst of your crisis there, you were able to remember to take 3 deep breaths, which is fantastic. You were able, I don't know that you necessarily thought about it in terms of, well, geez, I have this high level of stress. I know that breathing will relieve that. I don't think you probably did that. But you did have enough presence of mind to say, okay, relax, just take a breath, take another breath, and you did that a few times until you relaxed. And wow, that was really, really good.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think my spirit guide or somebody was with me, sort of feeding me information, because I often, like I said, I often forget to take deep breaths. And it was there that day. It was there taking the deep breaths. And I really felt a difference. I really feel taking deep breaths is truly a way to help you get back into the vortex.
It kind of reminds me of the story. Your story was different because you were horrified at the fact that you were going so fast. But my sister has a story that happened to her many, many years ago, where she was living with my parents in Virginia, and she needed to get to Washington, D.C. for some very important event. I don't remember what it was, and she was running late. And she had just within the last previous years, a couple, 3 years, she had learned about her own spirit guides and actually knew who some of the identities were. But on this particular day, she said, I need to get there. I don't have enough time to get there. The only way I can get there is by speeding. And one of her spirit guides said, we'll guide you there.
Wow.
Now, let me presage this by saying we don't recommend you do this at home. But
yeah.
What she did was, and apparently one of her spirit guides in a previous lifetime was an Indian chief. And he has a name, apparently, that is very Indian-like. What tribe, I have no idea. But apparently, this Indian chief said, well, I'm going to guide you there. And he, mystically and spiritually speaking, got onto his horse and started riding down the highway in front of her with war whoops going off, saying, I'm following me, woo, 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 going down the highway. And she's speeding down the highway. And then he says, slow, 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 slow. And she slows down. There's a cop there. And okay, speed up. Go out another one. Oh, slow, 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 slow. And that's the way they went in D.C. And she got there on time.
Wow.
I mean, what a crazy story that was.
That is crazy. Yeah. Wow. Well,
once again, do not try that at home.
I do believe that we have a spirit guide, at least one, who is with us all the time and whose main goal for, at least in our relationship, is to help us in life. And so I totally would buy that story. I totally believe that they're there to help us, and we can ask them to do whatever, So
and as Linda
I think
told
as
me,
long as it's good for our good.
Oh yeah, and as Linda told me on Friday, sometimes they're there to laugh at me.
Right. Well, sometimes I guess our naivete is really laughable to them.
I guess so.
Maybe our learning process and all that, because they know everything and they see everything and they know who we are.
I guess I'm so glad that I am a good source of entertainment for them. That's about all I can say to it.
I say that to Mike all the time. He says it's like living with Lucille Ball, because I'll do things all the time that just make him laugh. It's just, stupid, funny things, or, I'll say something crazy or I'll do something funny. And, if I can get somebody to laugh, that's great. I feel like I've accomplished a mission that day. And even if they're laughing at me, it's okay.
Isn't it fun?
It is. I love to help people laugh.
I enjoy it too. I'm often here on the podcast trying to find some way to make my co-host laugh. Because if I can do that like once or twice, that's a successful podcast. I don't care what else we talked about. That alone makes it a successful podcast. Just because I like it.
Yeah. There you go.
Yeah. It's like my version of laughter yoga, really. I mean, laughter yoga, you laugh without a reason. I like to have a reason, so I invent one.
Right. Well, hey, the reason is laughter is good for you.
Exactly. So, yeah. It really is good for you, too. It's tremendously good. And it is a good way to get back into that alignment. That's what we're talking about today. How do you get back into the vortex? How do you get back into alignment when you're not in there? Because we know what that's like. It's right. And for those who are like me, who don't like the complexity of those phrases, into the vortex alignment, what the hell are they talking about? What about when you don't feel good and you want to feel good? That's the way I look at it. If I want to feel good, I can't stay in that not feeling good place. Yeah. And it's much simpler and much cleaner, and it's a whole lot easier than all that vortex junk.
Yeah, well, that is simpler. Yeah. Feel good and don't feel good. Yeah. And, I didn't realize until learning Abraham or studying Abraham about the importance of feeling good, and that when you're feeling good or happy or joyful or something like that, you're in alignment, you're in harmony with your higher self.
Yeah.
And you're sort of on the right path, quote unquote, if there is such a thing as a right path. But, because we set before we start this lifetime, we set sort of a blueprint for our lives. When we're in harmony with that, we feel good. Mm-hmm. And when we don't, we don't. And it wasn't until Abraham that I realized how important it was to feel good, to feel happy, to feel joyful, or at least peaceful and content.
Yes.
There's that fine line between content and boredom. And I have that list. I used to have it in my refrigerator. Now I only have the top half of Abraham's list of 22 emotional states.
Right.
But it was interesting for me to see where content and boredom were. Really, it was interesting to see the whole list. But and I highly suggest people get a hold of that list that Abraham has. And I think it's in, actually, I don't remember the name of the book that it's in, which one it is.
Oh, it's in Asking It Is Given.
But yeah, there you go.
Yep. It's somewhere around 120, 127, something like that. That's the page number. Somewhere around there.
Uh-huh. Yeah. And it's a great list. And to know that, that little difference between content and boredom, if you can just stay content or above, then you're good. You're good. And things are going to go your way a lot better than if you're down below that line.
That's true. It's gotten to the point now where the moment that I start feeling any negative energy, any negative emotion, I want out fast. A lot faster than before I understood anything about how law of attraction works or what Abraham teaches or anything. Because now that I understand just how self-destructive, not destructive, but how much I am putting barriers in my own way by getting into that negative space, boy, do I want to get out fast. It's kind of like, you jumped into the hot coals and I want to climb out of those hot coals.
Yeah. I loved Abraham's sort of comparison, like taking a journey, and I always use Connecticut and California. I'm like, if I want to go to California and I'm in Connecticut, I point my car west, I point it towards California, and I go. And then getting into a negative state of mind or feeling depressed or frustrated or angry or any of those emotions turns my car around and points me back going to Connecticut. So I might get to Ohio, or I might get to New York, or I might get as far as Montana even. But once I turn my car around, then it's like I'm starting all over again in Connecticut, and you got to start all over again. And I feel like, it's like, because I feel like from what I can tell, you have to stay positively focused or in those positive vibrations for a long enough period of time for whatever it is you want to manifest to actually manifest in your life. And if you don't, then it's like starting all over again. If you get mad and you're not staying in that positive vibration, I feel like it's starting all over again. And I could be wrong on that because, maybe you get to Ohio and you turn back facing Connecticut because you start being negative, but you don't actually go all the way back to Connecticut. Like maybe you're still in Ohio.
Yeah, I would.
I don't know.
I would think. I would think you'd have to build up a lot of really negative momentum before you end up back in Connecticut. I mean, because that's that's something Wendy points out, that momentum is another word for the law of attraction, and as you build up attraction by focusing, you are essentially building up momentum. So as you've been traveling from Connecticut to California and you've gotten to Montana, you got a lot of momentum toward California built up. It's going to take a heck of a lot of reverse momentum to throw you back to Connecticut. So unless you're just focusing on whatever that negative is for a really, really long period of time, like, days, weeks, months, if you do that, okay, you'll probably not only end up in Connecticut, you'll probably end up in the Atlantic Ocean. But right? But unless you do that, it's probably not. You're probably like taking 1,500 miles out and 10 miles back, and then you realize, oh yeah, I don't want to go that way, and then you turn around and head back toward California.
It could be, yeah. Plus the intensity of our anger too, or the intensity of our fear, or whatever it is. It's not even just that you're having an emotion or for the duration of time, but it's the intensity too.
Yep, because that intensity is important.
That adds to it. Yeah, I think so.
So let's see. So, if we're in that place, or if we're in that really difficult place, because that's what we're addressing. We're out of alignment. We're not feeling good. We're out of the vortex. We're basically out to lunch. Okay, so what's our first step? Okay, first step.
I have another one.
Yeah.
Oh, I just thought of another one that I do sometimes.
Okay.
Another one is I feel gratitude for where I am by looking at other people who I don't feel are in as, I hate to say this word, but, in as good a situation as I am. Maybe they're on the street and they're an alcoholic and they're just hanging out on the street corner day after day after day after day after day. Or they're carrying their groceries. I saw a lady carrying her groceries up a big hill with like a shopping cart. One of those ones you buy at the store.
Right.
Like some kind of shopping cart. She didn't steal it from the grocery store, but it was a shopping cart, and she was carrying her groceries up the hill, and so sometimes if I'm upset or depressed, more so when I'm like depressed, I think about others, people who are not as well off as me, and I feel gratitude for where I am. And that feeling of gratitude, I know we talked about gratitude before, but there's so many different ways you can get to the feeling of gratitude.
That's true.
And so that's another way for me to get to gratitude, and gratitude is a way for me to pivot away from whatever negative emotional state I was in.
I can honestly say that focusing on the travails of others has never really worked for me in terms of being grateful. Mostly what I feel when I see something like that is I just feel bad for them. I don't have any room for feeling grateful. But nevertheless, I do recognize that is a really good method for a lot of people to say, there but for the grace of God go I. That's essentially the same idea, the same concept there. And I can see that. I can see why that could be effective for many, many people.
Yeah. Yeah, I say that a lot. Yep. Especially because of where I work. I work in a neighborhood where there's a lot of people who are who are down.
True.
They're depressed. They drink. They don't have any money. I'm in that neighborhood all the time.
Mm-hmm.
So I have to, and I feel like I have to stay up. I have to stay positive lest I get dragged down. So I have to sometimes work at staying up.
I remember that time that I came down to the Buttonwood to do the book signing. We had that book signing event in June.
Mm-hmm.
And a few of those people were out front, next to the doorway to your facility. And I saw them, and you told me before that they were there, and they would be there most of the time and so forth. That's where a lot of them hang out. And so I was ready for it, and I kind of recognized it. When I saw them, I made it a point to smile at them and nod hello and so forth. And I got no response from them at all. But that was okay, because I know what it's like when you're in a bad space, in a really bad space. I've been there. And when you're in that really bad space, you can't see a way out, especially if you don't know anything about deliberate creation. Well, that means that's where they were at. They couldn't see any way out. So I would have been surprised if they gave me a positive reaction. I think what I was actually doing was, by giving them that smile and that greeting, that positive hello and so forth, I think I was kind of like breaking, like a little light breaking through surprisingly, and like, oh my goodness, this event just happened. How did that happen? So for that one brief moment in time, they had an exposure to something that felt good. Now, they were probably right back to depression the next moment, but nevertheless, I gave them that one moment.
Yeah. And, sometimes that's all it takes is one moment to start somebody to feel a lot better.
Yeah.
So I applaud you for that. That was good. And I do. I think it's important to smile at people.
And there was a time when I couldn't do that at all, by the way.
That's a great thing to do.
I mean, I would make that part of my walk practice. That's where I first started trying to, in a sense, reach out to people like that. Not that I find a whole lot of depressed people out on walks. That's not what I really mean. I'm talking more about the fact that I was such a wallflower, such an introverted person for so long, and I still am introverted. But because of that, I was unwilling and reluctant to say hello or smile or greet anybody under any circumstance. So, that, and yet I understood that was one of those little barriers I needed to break through in order to help get me into a more positive place on a regular basis. So I made it a point. This is something that Sean Aker recommends. He of the positive psychology movement. Sean recommends that you make it a practice to greet at least one person a day with a smile. And just do that.
Well,
just
come a long way, baby.
Yeah. Well, it took me a while to do it. The first time I tried that, I couldn't do it. It took like 2 or 3 walks before I could finally bring up the nerve to smile at somebody. And of course, when you're out on a walk, other people are out on a walk too. So they're in a pretty good place anyway. So I would get a smile back. Yeah. And that was a really valuable smile to get back because I initiated it. I initiated the contact. I initiated the smile. And I got rewarded for it, essentially, right? Getting that smile back was a reward. Yeah. Well, that's a helpful reward to get. It's very powerful. By the way, we actually have a caller on the line. I have a sneaking suspicion I know who the caller is. So let's find out who is our mystery caller.
Hello, this is Mike McEwen. How are you?
I knew it was you.
Hi, Mike.
I'm sitting in my office doing some work, and I'm hearing my name being called, and I just had to call in and say I'm guilty of all of it.
Well, if you're going to cop a plea, you might as well do it to something that was good, Mike, because it was all good. So, right time to do it, I have to say.
See that? I'm racking up attaboys as we go.
There you go. So I got to ask you.
If there's one thing.
No, go ahead.
Okay, go ahead.
No, you first, Mike.
If there's one thing I could add to the conversation, if you are going to practice the law of attraction, find somebody to practice with you so they can, keep you accountable when you get out of the vortex and they tell you have 16 seconds to get back in. It works.
You're being timed. 1, 2, 3.
Yep.
It really helps to have somebody that's practicing it along with you.
Yeah, I agree completely. Yeah. Having Louise in my corner and me in Louise's corner, I mean, I totally agree with that and buy into it. And even if you're somebody who you're not currently in a relationship, you're not married or in a long-term relationship or something, find a friend. Find somebody who you have heard of or know of or whatever who has some understanding of this stuff, just so you can have that person to talk to. Because, oh boy, does that make a difference. It makes a real big difference. Yeah. And by the way, if you have nobody to talk to, call us. You know, we like having calls. Look at the response that Mike got when he called in, right?
That's right.
Yeah, inspire other people to call in. Call in and talk. Yeah,
absolutely.
It's important. Maybe we should have weekly meetings as well.
Yeah.
Hey, you know, I've been considering all kinds of things to expand the programming, expand what we're doing with this operation, because we're getting more and more people interested in it. And we're getting better and better response. I mean, I'll tell you guys something. I had a contact from a guy I used to do a podcast on another subject with about 5 or 6 years ago. And he and I reconnected on Facebook and found out we're both into very, very similar areas of spirituality. And we're thinking, wow, this is really wild, because we used to talk about politics and financial issues. I mean, talk about so far away.
The other end of the spectrum.
Yeah, really. Yeah, and then here we are. We're discovering, and he listened to one of our podcasts recently and loved it. And he and his wife want to come on to talk about their particular approach to the whole thing. Well, there's another example of somebody who, you know, I didn't really think of him as somebody that I would want to talk to about, you know. You know something about this? Can we chat sometime? That he was probably like number 865 on my list, but nevertheless he popped in, right? And when he popped in, I said, "Well, yeah, I used to love talking with Bill. He was great. We didn't co-host each other for a long time, but we had a fun time while we were doing it. And now actually we're trying to work out on our schedules a time when we can get together and do a podcast together. So, I mean, you just never know. You just never know. You just have to keep putting the feelers out there."
Yeah.
Well, keep doing what you're doing, because I know it's helping. And I'm going to sign off now so I can get back to billing jobs, so I can get some checks in and make my wife happy again. Rack up some more attaboys.
What do you mean? I'm not happy. What are you talking about?
She sounds like she's laughing to me. I don't know, Mike. I don't know about you. I mean.
Well, I can rack up more attaboys that way.
See,
Mike, I want to ask you a question, though. So we're talking about, like, what do we do to get back into the vortex? So what's one thing you do to get back into the vortex?
Good question.
I know you meditate. That's a really good thing. He's a great meditator, so he can meditate his back in. What else do you do?
Well, for me, it's best to. Sometimes I don't even realize I've been spit out of the vortex until it occurs to me that, wait a minute, I just made a wrong turn here. And it's usually when I get a little frustrated about something, and I know that I have to get past that. I have to start feeling good about something. So I'll congratulate myself over something ridiculous, like, I don't know, good job stopping at that stop sign at the perfect distance.
I love that.
Whatever it may be. Yeah, good job tying your shoes. I don't know. I'll reach for anything and start there and work my way up.
So you found a way to combine. You found a way to combine appreciation with laughter yoga all at the same time. That's pretty good.
Yeah, and laugh at something. Laugh at yourself. I mean, you have to laugh. You just laugh at yourself. But it's a ongoing thing. Sometimes it just happens minute by minute. You're sailing along and you think you're doing well, and something's already happening, like a program that you didn't shut off on your phone, and it just keeps wearing the battery down, and something hits and bang. So you just have to have the defense mechanisms in place to, when it happens in that minute, you have 16 seconds to turn it around. So I suggest you do so from past experiences. But looking for something to be, joyful about, finding something small and working from there, because you can find something really small. A child's laughter, seeing people together that are happy. Wow, that's great. Some, think about your favorite ice cream. I don't know. Anything you can come up with that'll bring some joy into your moment.
By the way, there's a good
seems to work best for me.
There's a good piece of news where the 17 seconds rule is concerned, or the 16 seconds as you're describing it. If you miss and you don't get it done within 16 seconds, so now you're starting to develop a negative momentum. It doesn't matter how long you've been going with the momentum. You could have been going on with it for 5 years. You can still reverse it. It's harder. It's harder at that point. It takes more time, but so I mean, don't kick yourself if you don't get it done in 16 seconds. It's okay. You can still turn it around.
Right.
You're right. That's right. Yes. Better late than never.
Better late than never. Yes. That's right.
Just recognizing that we have the tools and the resources to do that. To do so is very important.
It really is. It really
is. Just keep doing it. Yeah. Day by day, step by step, podcast by podcast. So keep them coming, Walt.
One podcast at a time. I try not to do more than one at a time, otherwise I get confused. But yeah, one podcast at a time.
I'm waiting for the T-shirts to come out so I can wear one of your podcast T-shirts around.
That's a good idea. I hadn't thought about doing a podcast T-shirt.
Yeah, there you go.
That's a really good idea.
One. Send it to me.
Hey, maybe we have like giveaways. You know, you become the X person, the first person to do X, and you get a T-shirt or something. I don't know. We'll have to figure that one out. Go. Yeah, give that a little thought. See? Right. Good idea. Okay, so on this date, August 26th, Mike came up with the idea of the podcast T-shirt. Okay.
Well, there it is. See? I called in for a reason. All right. So, listen, I'm going to get back to work, folks. Just keep doing what you're doing. I love all this, and we'll be talking soon.
Thanks, Mike. Love it.
All right. Thanks, Mike.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Take care. Well, that was nice.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not very often we get a call in on a Sunday night. I mean, even if it's your spouse, hey, that's still okay. It counts. It still counts.
Yeah, it counts. He was listening. Yeah, that was good. That was good. It is. Well, we do help each other to get out of to get back into the vortex. And usually it's a two-way street. I help him, he helps me, but it is really helpful to have somebody else recognize, hey, you're out of the vortex, hey, you're really pointed at, upstream. Why are you paddling upstream? Sometimes I'll just say to him, like, drop the oars.
Yeah, right.
Stop paddling.
Right, yeah.
Stop the struggle. Stop the struggle.
I also want to
Sometimes
point
you're
out.
in the middle of something. And
no, go ahead. Finish your thought.
Oh, sometimes you're in the middle of something and you're in the middle of something so negative and so big that you don't even realize how badly you are focused on the negative. And you're just like, I've got to finish this thing, and I'm just like, just drop the oars, just let go, just stop doing what you're doing, go take a walk or go meditate or go do some Tai Chi or go do something so you get your mind off of it. And then you can go back to it later, or if it's me, I'm just like, okay, just drop it, close the computer, go do something else, go do some yoga or something, go try to, put on a comedy routine on YouTube or something like that, and just get out of your head. And then I can go back to it later. And it helps to have that other person there help you recognize that,
Oh, it definitely helps a lot. And for those who perhaps don't have somebody like that, if you want to know how to find somebody, you can literally attract them. That's how actually Anne-Marie and I became friends. I attracted you guys, and you attracted me too, because you were trying to advertise that event you were trying to put on, and I was trying to reach out on behalf of Louise and myself to find some Law of Attraction friends, and we both put it out there. And when I was doing my searching on Google, you came up really, really fast on this very obscure listing. I mean, it wasn't like this was a major listing anywhere, but you just popped right in there. So, it works that way too. I mean, yes, you want to take some steps too, but get yourself into alignment. That's the segment intending part, right? You intend first to get yourself into the best feeling place you can reach for, and then you take that inspired action to do the thing that you've been wanting to do to get whatever you want.
Right.
Now, do you segment intake regularly? Is that something you do often?
It's something I do, especially when I get into the car, because as I put my seatbelt on, I intend to have a safe journey. I intend to have a safe, enjoyable, successful journey to wherever I'm going. So I do that a lot. And sometimes I segment intend before I do a particular thing, before I make a particular phone call sometimes, or send a particular email. So a lot of times I'll do that, and I'll make an intention for that particular thing to go well. And I think it's really important, and I think it's important to recognize that we do different things throughout the day, and you can address each individual item that you're about to do individually. And I think that's really helpful.
I think it's important, too. I think of it as an alignment check. How's my alignment right now? Mm-hmm. I'm about to do something. Yeah. Oh, my alignment isn't quite as good as I'd like it to be. Let's do a little bit of realigning and segment intending. Oh, my alignment is good, then I'll just segment intend.
Yeah, that's great. That's a great way of looking at it. Yeah, I agree. That's good.
The only thing I lack in
no matter
the only thing I lack in that department is remembering to do it every time. Other than that, I've got it down.
Right. I liked it when Abraham said something like, you being in alignment is stronger than, a million people out of alignment, or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
You know? So we have more power and more potential when we're in alignment than, thousands outside of alignment. So that to me was really powerful.
Speaking of that, it reminds me there's a couple things that I need our listeners to align with. One is, this is especially for those who are subscribers and who listen regularly and faithfully, and we love every single one of you because you're helping to build us up. Put out there on social media, just put a little post that you were listening tonight and to this particular podcast, and just share you were listening to LOAtoday.net. Use that phrase in your post on Facebook or Twitter or whatever you're doing. Just include that, because that is contributing to this massive surge that we're seeing. I mean, I wish I had a way. This is one time that I wish I actually had video so I could show people the graph that I see. But literally, our listenership in terms of number of plays is up substantially. I would say up like 40 to 50% since we started doing this about 2 weeks ago. It's really paying dividends. Wow. And not only that,
that's right.
Something happened this past week that it happened for the first time on the iTunes store, which is where if you're using an iPhone, your podcast software is connecting into the iTunes store to pick up our podcast, especially when you're doing your initial search. You can, as you know, do a search on almost anything. And, of course, one of the popular things people would search for is law of attraction. Well, guess what? We are now number 22 on the law of attraction list. We have climbed into we are now visible so that more and more people can find us, and perhaps people who didn't even know about us before. And that's all happening because of the relatively small minority of our listeners who are posting about, yes, I saw the podcast or listened to the podcast, and yes, I urge you to listen to LOAtoday.net or whatever it is, that you have to say. It's paying dividends. More and more people are finding out. And the more people that find out, that's more daily doses of happy going around. So that's a really good thing. So please do continue to post.
Yeah, that is a good thing.
Yeah, very important. The other thing I want to say, though, is for those who may be listening to their first episode, well, guess what? You can be a subscriber, too. And all the instructions on how to do that are on the homepage of our website at fill in the blank, LOAtoday.net. Of course, where else would it be? So please go there, and it's really simple to do. It takes about a minute. It's free, and you too can become a subscriber and join our happy family of people getting their daily doses of happy. So that's our promos for the night. Not a lot of time left,
right.
but
very good.
But let's finish up with one last thought about what we do when we're in a bad place. So right now, if something were happening right now that you didn't like, there's the siren in the background saying, "Oh my God, something terrible is happening." What's your go-to right now in order to get into a better feeling place?
I think we've talked about everything that I tend to be very repetitive, so I tend to do those things that I already mentioned to you. Sometimes putting on music for me is something that I can do. I can definitely put on music and get into a better place.
That's a good one.
But usually I'll put on something to listen to. I'll usually put on an Abraham thing, a YouTube Abraham I'll listen to, or the other thing I do is we have a Louise Hay calendar. It's a daily calendar. And every day there's a beautiful picture and a beautiful saying. And so even just looking at these statements, which I have posted all around my house, literally I let's see, I have like 12 in my bathroom, and I have inside my kitchen cabinets, I have them, and on my kitchen table is this beautiful, peaceful picture of moss and rocks and a waterfall, and it's patience. Patience is being at peace with the process of life. So sometimes just looking at that thing will make me feel better and help me get out of a stinking mood.
Well, there you go. And with that, unfortunately, we're out of time, but that's a great way to end it. Anne-Marie, thank you very much, and I look forward to talking to you next week.
Thank you, Walt.
All right.
Yeah, thank you. You have a great week. I hope you laugh a lot.
Thank you, and we hope that you'll join us next time as well here on LOA Today. Goodbye, everybody.